everyone. Thank you for joining us in this edition of The Inside. Today, we are looking at issues concerning the forthcoming presidential election in the Republic of Cameroon. About 8 months to the presidential election that should be coming up by October this year. Calls for a coalition of opposition parties in the country continue rising to the sky. The last came from the Association of Civil Societies for Sustainable Development. In the meantime, opposition leaders have been denouncing what they qualify as threat and intimidation and even crackdown from the administration, notably the Minister of Territorial Administration, Tanganji Paul, in one of the recent outings of opposition leaders in the country, notably that of Professor Maurice Kamto. He warned against what he qualifies as attempts, deliberate attempts to hinder his candidacy, and he says that there is a risk of chaos if that happens. There is a risk of chaos if things continue going the way they are going, with threats and intimidation from the administration and obstructions to activities of opposition political parties in the country. In the meantime, there are calls, as I said earlier, on opposition political leaders to go beyond egocentric interest, to go beyond personal interest, to go beyond party interest, to come together in a common front to unseat President Paul Biya. Thank you for staying with us. Meet our guests in some few seconds. We are receiving Professor AKUHMBOM MAC Anthony. He's a civil society activist, Secretary General of the Association of Civil Societies for Sustainable Development. You're welcome to the program.
Thank you, Babila Jonathan, for receiving me in your program, The Insight. It is actually a pleasure to be here today. It has been a long while since I last participated in your program. I think it is time for Cameroonians to get to understand the importance of this presidential election in 2025. You see, for a long period of time, we have joked around the whole idea of electoral process. But I think this year, Cameroonians should take it serious and do what is needed for the change that they are desiring.
Cameroonians should take the forthcoming presidential election serious and do the needful to have, of course, the much desired change. Many Cameroonians, many young persons who had been caught up in the web of voter apathy for so many decades have actually come out of their slumber, and they are now calling for change. They are demanding that they want change at the helm of the state. But this change, according to some observers, some analysts, can only come through a coalition, a come together of ideologies, of political parties to form a common front for the presidential election. This is the call that came from the organization, the Association of Civil Societies for Sustainable Development, earlier this week. You granted a press conference here in Douala to talk about this. But before we come to that, I want to have your take on the issue of threat and intimidation from the administration. Political leaders of the opposition have been raising grave concerns about these outings of the minister qualified as threat and intimidation.
To actually present my view on this without taking side as an activist, I want to say this. When you look at the playground, the political playground in Cameroon, you realize it is one-sided, which has been actually tilted by the government of Cameroon, which in reality should not. I think Cameroon is a nation that is supposed to be ruled by the law. And we have laws that govern everything in this country. But it's unfortunate that some ministers step out of their bounds, even go against the law. It is not the duty of the executive, or let me put it this way, of the government, to determine who becomes a candidate for the presidential election. It is not the duty of a government official. That falls in the hands of the Electoral Commission, ELECAM, and the Constitutional Council. That is the right quarters that makes that decision. But when a minister takes it upon him to come and threaten political parties and even tell Cameroonians who is supposed to run and who is not supposed to run, that in itself is a violation of the law. And it is tantamount to treason. I want to put it that way. You see, we are in a nation where we preach the law, but the law works for selected individuals. Some individuals think they have the right and authority to subdue the law, work on the law, and nothing will happen to them. But if Cameroon is a law-abiding nation, I want to quote somebody, not making publicity. I remember there was a case concerning the PCRN which went to court, and the court judgment was given. An appeal went forward, and the appeal was still denounced by the fact the court actually still gave the judgment over to the I think Cabral Libri, who is the present president of PCRN. But I'm shocked and surprised that his name keeps coming up as someone who is struggling to topple the leadership of an opposition party to take it over. That you look at it, you start asking questions. What is wrong? The Ministry of Territorial Administration has the right to validate, or let me use the word authorize, political parties and associations, cultural groups and all that. But they do not have the right to determine who remains or becomes the president of any of those political parties. Those things are guided by internal rules and regulations of the party or of the association. The duty of the territorial administration is to play an oversight. Like, since they are the ones who validated, they should be able to also say, okay, since I'm the boss, or we are the boss of the territory, this is the way things should be done for the sake of peace. Not that you determine who leads a party and who does not lead a party.
No, with regards to what he qualifies as maneuvers to hinder his candidacy, Professor Maurice Kamto accuses the government, making reference or citing the Minister of Territorial Administration, of violence or rebellion against the state and state insurrection. Do you see this in the actions of the minister?
You see, nobody knew that there was going to be a crisis in the northwest and southwest region that was going to shake Cameroon like it has been for the past 8 years. When it was a simple protest, which the people actually demonstrated, it got to the point it is today because government officials, when sitting on a high horse, and apart from that, they went to this point of even downgrading the people, throwing slants and all that. It is because of the mismanagement of the government that led to the crisis in the northwest and southwest. So, it should not be taken wrong. If the people are pushed to the wall, it is possible they can want to react. When the people have gotten to a point where tolerance has actually disappeared from their hearts, at the end of the day, you shouldn't expect more. What should happen at the end of the day is the people should burst out. They burst out of anger. It can result to anything.
That points to the risk of chaos. If
there is a possibility, there is no, you don't take it off the table. There can be chaos if, in case, the suppression, let me use that word, continues. If the government continues to use high-handed methods to try to handle things that are supposed to be handled civilly, I think that also on the part of Kamto, he should also learn to have, should I use the word, he should know how to relate Because if you look at it, he's a man that has studied the law and he mastered the law. We know that the Constitution gives him the opportunity to run for presidential election, but there is a law that tells him if you do not have a councillor or an elected official in your party, that already eliminates your chances for running for a presidential election.
Even though there are two other possibilities.
Yes, there are possibilities that he can actually be nominated by another political party
which has elected officials.
Which have elected officials, as well as
go around and collect.
He can go as an independent candidate. He still have those chances. So I don't see the reason why he too should be making it a talk of war. If he sees that there is a problem, he should go around, act like an ant. An ant will not be blocked by a mountain. It is either it will dig a hole through the mountain, or it will go around the mountain, or it will go over the mountain. It's a choice.
But his problem is that the authorities, notably the Minister of Territorial Administration, according to him, has been trying to kind of make Cameroonians believe that he's out of the race. He's already out of the race. He cannot be a candidate. Putting aside the two possibilities that still exist for him.
You know, that is why I said it is not the duty of the Minister of Territorial Administration, Mr. Atanganji, to decide who is valid for the presidential race. It is not his duty. That responsibility falls on the Electoral Commission, Elecam, and the Constitutional Council. I don't know why Mr. Atanganji takes it upon him to decide who should run for the presidential election. He doesn't have the right to do that. He has gone beyond his duties as a Minister of Territorial Administration in trying to define who should run for presidential election. That is going against the law. He is not supposed to do that. That is not his duty.
However, as of now, no decision has been taken so far as to who will stand or who will not stand, because there's a procedure that has to be followed, and then the candidacies will be validated, and then the list will be published, and then we'll know who is running and who is not running.
That's right.
Now, the opposition political parties in Cameroon as of now remain quite divided. Everyone on his own front, in his own perspective, in his own position, with his own ideology, and holding firm to it. I am a candidate. I am a candidate. I am a candidate. Come to on the other side. Cabral Libby on the other side. O.C. Joshua. At the same time, we have also Akerimuna coming in. And you people are thinking that they should come together in a common front. Is it indispensable for them to come together?
You know, if you have followed the presidential elections in Cameroon, then you get to a place where you might want to consider that the fact that running as an individual seems to be an impossibility. You see, in 1992, let me go back to start showing you. In 1992, the population of Cameroon was close to about 15 million. And about 4-point-something million people registered to vote in 1992. And out of the people registered to vote, about 1.6 million by statistics voted for the President Pobia. And 1 million something people voted for Frundi, according to statistics. Because I know the opposition, the SDF, rose up that year and said election was rigged, and time has passed. Individuals have come up to confirm that election was rigged. SDF won, and the CPDM took that. But that is without statistics. Statistics shows that the CPDM won. Do you know it was during that year? It was not only a contest between SDF and CPDM. There was the party of Bello Buba, I think UNDP, that's the name.
Yeah.
There was also the party of Damudam Joya, which UDC, which also ran that same year. And they shared the rest of the voters. Just imagine that year, they decided to say no. We truly want change because the people wanted change and they went out for change. If they decided to say, okay, we are going to come together and have one candidate instead of the various individuals who ran, what do you think would have happened? Frunzi alone had 1.something million. The rest of them shared 1.something million people. And SDF had 1.6. Yeah, that was the first year where multi-partyism was established in Cameroon, and that was the first election. Let's go back to 1990, I think 98?
98, yeah.
Yeah, 1998. There was an election that took place, if not 1997, I think 1997. If not 97, it should be 98, something like that. Becky, you can check. I think it should be 97. An election took place, and SDF boycotted, Damudam Joya boycotted, Bello Buba boycotted. So it gave the CPDM the right to have a landslide win, and they won big time. They won big time. There was an election in 1997 and in 1998. Don't forget that. There was an election, the presidential election took place in 1998 as well as the parliamentary in 1997 as well as 1998. Those two elections took place. So, in 2004, these parties, I will tell you, over 4.something million again still voted, went to cast their votes, or registered and casted their vote. In the 4.something million people, this time SDF came down to 600 and something people. 600 and something thousand. The rest shared, and CPDM rested at the top with over 2.something million votes. Why? Because they still did not realize they needed to create a coalition. In fact, that 2004, they tried, but something happened, they scattered it.
It didn't work.
It didn't work. Because of egocentric reasons. Because they were thinking of themselves. In 2011, this time around, the population of Cameroon had increased to more than 20-something million people. And that 2011, 7.something million people registered and went to vote, but only about 4.something million still went and casted their vote. Are you seeing there was a trend? Who won? The CPDM won with over 70%. This time, SDF had about 500 and something thousand votes, being the second. That is to tell you they did not have what it took to win. In 2018, we are talking now of a shift. A nation with a population that was over 28 million people. How many people went to decide who should become the president of the country? 3.something million people. Out of 6.something million that registered. 3.6-something million people went to vote. Out of the 6-point-something, 2.5 decided who becomes the president in a country of 28 million people. This is 2025. And we want to still follow the same pattern, expecting to have another result. It means that we do not understand what the definition of a madman is. A madman is an individual who does, or an insane man is someone who does things the same way and expecting another result.
So, from your perspective, it is imperative for the opposition leaders, for the opposition parties to come together.
That is a clear call we are making, and it's imperative. Why? Because if somebody tells me they are, oh, you can win by yourself, I can win by myself, I'm looking at such an individual and trying to say this individual does not know the history of this country. Why? Because for anybody who knows the history of Cameroon and who has followed elections from 1992, I have followed elections from 1992 to today. And I know the trend. So when the people, because this call might be coming and people are thinking it's a call of a civil society organization. No, it is a call of the people. Cameroonians have seen it and they are tired. They have gotten to the point where they say, if in case these people do not vote, do not unite, then they are indirectly promoting the stay in power of the ruling party.
But looking at the way things are as of now, with the different positions expressed here and there by the different political leaders, do you think this call from, I think your organization brings together at least 11 civil society organizations or so?
Yes.
Do you think this call will go through, will yield the expected fruits?
You see, it is true we have made the call. I just watched the last time SDF had its convention and designated their presidential candidate. That already tells you something is not going well somewhere. They might not hit to the call. We already have different independent candidates who have declared their candidacy. And in major parties, I don't want to say that it is impossible for these people to unite, to form a coalition. But I think there is a clear path that it is not going to happen. Even though it is still our call that they should keep aside their egocentric appetites. They should keep aside their party calls. They should keep aside anything that would jeopardize this 2024-2025 presidential election from being won by another individual.
From being a turning point.
Let them keep all those things aside and come together. Create a coalition. This call is coming. You see, election will be taking place in Nigeria. Presidential election in Nigeria will be taking place in 2027. We are in 2025. But already there's a coalition of opposition parties preparing to take over. I just watched Ivory Coast. A coalition had already been formed to tackle the ruling party. What is happening with Cameroonian politicians? I'm not educating them. They know what they are doing. And they know that on their own, they don't have the capacity to win. We will complain and say that the electoral code is a problem. Yes. There is practically no electoral code in the world that is flawless. But there is always a way, a strategy to go around this. I also want to say the laws in themselves are not bad. It is the consciences and willingness of the individuals who are interpreting the same laws that is the problem.
The application
of the laws. So are we going to stay and say that the electoral code is not favoring us and not do what at least will convince even the individuals who interpret the laws and execute the law to work based on their conscience? The crowd, the population of Cameroon, the electorate is calling. You see, I also want to show something that, to bring out something that is playing a big part in this year, which was not in the past years. I've mentioned that just about 4 million people in every year, 3 in some years, went to vote. In 2025, Cameroonians are awakening to the fact that the masses have the power, and most of them are rushing to register. The population,
with the work being done by some political parties,
yes,
and some
and
civil society
organized
like yours,
yes,
like people like Aristide Mono, Dr. Aristide Mono, and so on, there's likely going to be an increase in the number of voters.
You see, I was on the field 2 days ago. 2 days ago, registering people, and the turnout is encouraging, very, very encouraging. I believe that out of the
you were facilitating the registration, right?
Yes.
Because when you say registration,
when I was facilitating the registration, I beg your pardon. Yeah, thank you for that correction. I was facilitating the registration. What I wanted to say is, looking at the population of Cameroon, which is about 30 million right now, and considering that in the past election, just about 2-something million people decided who should vote, the question I should be asking the electorate today is, do you really think that you have been doing a favor by refusing to go and vote? You have not. So it is still my place, sitting on this platform today, to call on Cameroonians to go register massively. Do not sit and say that we do not know who to vote for. Not knowing who to vote for is already deciding who to vote for. And that's what they do not know. If you register massively, at the end of the day, you have a choice of the person to vote, because it is the population, it is the electorate that determines who becomes the president or who becomes an elected official. It is not the elected official who decides to become by himself. And so don't sit behind and allow a few people to make that decision for you. If you fail to have a voter's card, don't complain tomorrow that the nation is like this or like that, because you are an accomplice by making that decision of not having a voter's card, and for making that decision to decide not to go and vote, you have decided to rig the elections by yourself.
All right, Professor Mac AKUHMBOM Anthony, Civil Society Leader, Secretary General of the Association of Civil Societies for Sustainable Development. Thank you so much for your time.
It's my pleasure.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for staying with us. We're going to the newsstands now, and we're taking a look at what the newspapers reported this week. Stay with us. Eden reports that after 5 months in captivity, Idabato Divisional Officer Ewane Roland regains liberty. According to the Post-Weekender, the abandoned Northwest Funds Secretariat has been transformed into a brothel and a home for thieves and snakes. The Guardian Post, rebuilding Northwest and Southwest. PM Lord's Gaines calls for renewed efforts, but the Archbishop of Bamenda urges government to engage directly with separatist fighters. The Insider takes its readers into the implementation of recommendations of the major national dialogue. Government says actions are paying huge dividends. As reported by the Advocate, at the induction and institution of the moderator and synod clerk of the Presbyterian Church in Cameroon PCC, the church preached peace. In about the induction of the new moderator and synod clerk of the PCC, Eco Outlook projects fresh hope for a bright new chapter in the history of the church. Another issue of the Guardian Post highlights gender equality and women's empowerment. It points to where the shoe pinches. The Sun, political maneuvers. Ngongo visits Archbishop Kleda. The paper puts forth the question: is the Secretary General at the Presidency of the Republic trying to woo the no-nonsense clergy to tamper his anti-beer stance? According to the paper, Ferdinand Gongo's unannounced nationwide tour has sparked huge controversy over his role and that of the Prime Minister. In the same vein, the Herald Tribune tells its readers that during the visit, of the Secretary General of the Presidency, Minister of State Ferdinand Gongo, to the Douala Seaport. He hailed the realization of President Paul Biya's modernization vision. According to the Guardian Post, Ngongo lauded the outstanding modernization and the maritime transport facilities' contribution to national development. Newswatch goes further to say that Minister Ferdinand Gongo commends modern infrastructure, technological and managerial innovations of the port, now entirely controlled by nationals. He also praised the General Manager of the Douala Port Authority, Cyrus Ngo, for implementing presidential prescriptions. On the front page of another issue of the Guardian Post, Ngongo's national tour to inspect projects. Should it not be Djangute? The paper says the visit of Minister of State, Secretary General of the Presidency of the Republic so far to the far north, Lekki and Douala, to inspect infrastructure projects instead of the Prime Minister, head of government, Chief Dr. Joseph Djangute, has raised more questions about the functioning of the state apparatus than provided answers. The median incredible longevity as Secretary General of the Presidency, Ferdinand Gongo, and the intoxication of supreme power. About the 2025 presidential election, the Guardian Post exclaims, the Senate can make or mar. In the Post, government reassures citizens of free HIV, tuberculosis, and malaria services amid ongoing disinformation. And Cameroon Insider says, Health Minister tells HIV, tuberculosis and malaria patients don't pay a dime for drugs and services. Reporting about the poor hygienic state of the nation's political capital Yaoundé, the Guardian Post qualifies the situation as a total mess. Municipal updates report that mining deal with Caminco, Cameroon is positioning itself as Africa's leading mining negotiator. The country is set to begin industrial gold mining, as reported by The Horizon, while The Voice goes further to tell its readers that Cameroon ushers in industrial gold mining era with the landmark agreement. Cameroon Tribune projects progress made in the issuance of the national identity card in Cameroon in 48 hours. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for staying with us. Coming up in this edition of The Inside, we spoke to a political analyst, educationist, and entrepreneur, Dr. Nick Ngwanyam, militant of the Cameroon People's Democratic Movement, CPDM political party, and major proponent of the progressive CPDM ideology. And he analyzes the issues around the forthcoming presidential election, notably the issue of threat against opposition and opposition political leaders in the country, and also warnings about the possibility of chaos if things continue to go the way they are going. And he also talks about the issues linked to the socio-political and security tensions in the northwest and southwest regions of the country. Take a listen to what he has to say.
Minister Tanganji, the way he says things, he has his own way of saying things, which sometimes is not the best. But again, to say that there will be war or chaos because of an election is something that is not very nice to hear. That said, I think we are in a nation which is mature, and there's no reason to talk to each other as if they were beggars or treat them as if they were second class or non-existent. You know, we still have the Anglophone problem on our hands that has not yet been solved, and that problem went from pan to fire because of careless talk from some people. And I would say that careless talk is not the best way to fight for political positioning. Careless talk from both sides is bad and should be condemned vehemently. And I would say that we are brothers and sisters of the same nation, and the way we talk to each other, we should do so with utmost respect, and know that when you are talking, even when you are talking to one person, let's say, it doesn't matter who talking to come to, though you are looking at come to, realize that you are talking to a people, realize that you are talking to a group of people, it's not just him. So The way you address people is very important. What we call in business customer service, emotional intelligence, it goes a long way to make you succeed or fail. And to be sowing seeds of chaos unnecessarily is no use. And again, as I said, we have seen it before, how the way it's worked out in the Anglophone problem, when people were called dogs, cockroaches, rats, and what have you. That kind of language is not good. And we've seen a rise in hate speech in the nation. Sardina, Tongtina, Mouton, Wajo, Anglophone, frog, all those kind of things. I think it's uncalled for, and we begin to relieve the kind of things that were witnessed in Rwanda before, when they had their own kind of issues, and that led to a war with a lot of killings for no good reason. And I'm just begging that we should not follow that path. We should be more reasonable, and the way we talk to each other and the responses that we provide. Inciting violence for whatever reason is uncalled for. But of course, I think I have good news for everybody. Long before the presidential elections come on, there must be and there will be a government of national unity in which all positive forces will be pulled together, and we'll have a catalogue of all problems in the nation, and we'll try to see how we can work together in truth and in love to address many of these problems, so that by the time the presidential election is coming on board, many problems in the country would have been addressed in such a way that we will be able to live with each other, talk with each other, eat with each other, without having to pull our daggers. It's just so unfortunate. And I would say, I'm sure you've seen some videos where Professor Kamto himself, when he was boycotting the elections that were supposed to put in place MRC, MPs, senators, and council guys, he himself said that they were boycotting it in the knowledge, and full knowledge and awareness that they would not, it would jeopardize their opportunity to go in for these presidential elections and subsequent elections and whatever. Those videos are everywhere, and he said it not once, not twice. And when he said it, many people clapped for him. And he's a man of law, so when he says things, we all clap. I also clap for him, but when he turns around again to say, I want to go for elections, and he is blaming other people for not allowing him to go for elections, then it puts us in a lot of trouble. Because it was very easy for him to go to those other elections, because don't forget, a lot of his militants were very angry with him because they had, while he might have presidential ambitions, there were many people in his ranks who wanted to be MPs, senators, councillors, and mayors, and he blocked their opportunity. So a lot of people say, all you think of is you're being a president, you don't care about others. They might be right, they might be wrong, I don't know. In any case, though the law still provides that he can go for those elections by doing one of two things. There are some parties in parliament, and so he can approach any of these parties and then ride on their backs to go for presidential elections. The difference here is that he would go for presidential elections not on the ticket of the MRC, but on the ticket of that party that is in parliament. And I'm sure if he tries that, he will get it. And I'm sure I think he has got it. All he is doing is playing to the gallery so that his trump card is not released. You know, there are very bad people everywhere, especially in government. If they are aware of that trump card, that he has contacted a political party and they have agreed on something, they can disturb that. So in a way, he is distracting everybody from this possibility, which is easier. The second possibility, of course, is that he goes around and collects these 300 signatures, which are not possible. Collecting those 300 signatures around the country is like trying to get a teaspoon of crocodile tears. War is a very bad thing. Honestly, it's a very bad thing, and no one should deceive anybody to go for war or take up violence as a way of expressing themselves. It's a very bad thing. Probably before the war in the Anglophone zones, I probably never measured the impact of such a thing. When there is war, everybody loses. I mean, if you think war is good, check out Ukraine and Russia, and you would know that war is not a good thing. Check out, Palestine. Check out all those places that are having active war. War is not a good thing. Like many of our brothers who are sponsoring the war effort in the northwest and southwest region and staying abroad, they were having their holidays and having a good time, but their own brothers were not carrying the guns and fighting, and so they created a situation that they themselves, they cannot come to the northwest and southwest and go around freely and drink a beer. And everybody has paid the price for that war. And I think if we can settle any issue before we pull out the guns, it's always the best thing to do, because that's what Ukraine and Russia are going to do. Trump has put his finger down and they're going to settle that war. But at what cost, when people would have died and all these things. When we come back again to the Anglophone problem, I used to say this. If the military boys who are carrying the guns and are fighting, if those military boys were the children of ministers and generals, if they were the ones at the forefront, that Anglophone war would have stopped a long time ago, and everybody would have been at the negotiation table looking for solutions. So if other political leaders of the opposition in Cameroon think that war is a good idea, I will join them, I will support them, provided that they put their own children and their wives with guns in front, who will follow.
That was Dr. Nick Ngwanyam. Now, we're bringing to you some interviews of the week.
This is an opportunity to tell him again that his warm greetings from President Paul Biya for his courage, steadfastness, and the determination. So yesterday at 10 minutes past 5 p.m. he was officially handed over to the authorities. The SGO was there, the governor came, and they have come to meet me, the minister. We still have one case, the second assistant mayor of Idabato. So we are still working on that case, and I think by the grace of God, sooner or later, we'll also obtain the release of the second assistant mayor of Idabato. He will go through medical checkup, which is normal. That's one of the first things that we'll have to do. He has to go through medical checkup and to come back to himself, then before he can go back to his duty position. And I think that we have to thank President Paul Biya for all what he had put in place for him to be released, because we had diplomatic connections, we had discussions with all the stakeholders, the security services, the administrative authorities, and all those who could give us any information, any relevant information to go and discuss with those kidnappers who, as you know, are very, you cannot predict what they will do. They will give you, we have tried 2 or 3 times, and we were very close to take him, but at the last minute, they will change. So we tried in December, they could have released him. It was very difficult. We had another second attempt. It was in January, around the 25th of January. It didn't work. We had to try again to do it all over again, and this time it was.
After the 3-month suspension, one would expect that the government, of course, will proceed to unseal the building, and then the REDAC takes over its activities. So in case the government does not do that, the REDAC has to serve pre-litigation notice that the period of suspension has elapsed, and they're expecting within maybe 24 hours or whatever, and give them a month. If they don't, then they have to cease administrative court. When they go to the administrative court, of course, the administrative court will uplift the suspension, because it is already expired, and then REDAC will take over its activities.
We have just suspended the activities of Ready Global because the activities pose a risk to public health. And industrial practices are not respected, and we have a whole technical file with them which they know. In 2 months' time, all companies that are not conform in this sector will be shut down. And all companies should take this as a warning sign that if they do not conform, and their companies will be shut down. That's the message I have, that the products of Ready Global are not tolerated on the Cameroon market as of this moment. Thank you. Today we were with Coca-Cola. We have the license given to Cameroon and it's being run by a Cameroonian who is going to supply this to 4 countries in Africa. Today we are with a multinational which is found every place in the world, and they have decided to take the opportunity offered by our very good investment climate to invest in Cameroon. We are only here to encourage them and to assure you that we will leave no stone unturned.
Also in this edition of The Inside, we take you to the Dongamantum division in the northwest region of the country, where recent clashes between the indigenes of the area and other inhabitants, notably the Bororo, members of the Bororo community, led to destruction and loss of human lives. And in an effort to put an end to such happenings, the traditional rulers of the Dongamantum division initiated what they call the Peace and Reconciliation Caravan. And now we're going to find out from the president of the Dongamantum Funds Union, His Royal Majesty Jofo Maurice Ndi Ngiri II, Fond of Chup, how far they have gone in that initiative to restore peace, to ensure that such deadly clashes, such destructive clashes between inhabitants of the same area do not occur anymore.
Yeah, we realize that the impact of the peace caravan is very positive on the ground. The population has really implemented it greatly, even though there are still some lapses. We think that the impact was well felt on the population, and everybody is happy. Even the Fulani, the Boro who were there, are just very happy. But we know that much is still to be done. Mr. Babela, let me tell you something. There was no conflict as such between the natives and the Bororo. It is that there were some extremists, some young guys who were committing atrocities and taking like pretext that there's a conflict, making as if there were a conflict between the Bororo and the natives. No. This Bororo, we have stayed with them for more than a century. We have our minor farmer grazer problem, which is not more a problem because we have already understood how to tackle it, you see. But this one that led to killings of people, destruction of properties, was, I can say, was a criminal act. But they wanted to take a protest, make as if it is a problem of ethnic group, a problem of Bororo community and the natives. No. But our caravan was mainly to let the world know that between the Bororo and the natives, there is no problem. That those who are perpetrating atrocities shall be exposed, and they will know that everyone will see their faces. Understand? So on the field today, many have understood that in reality there was no problem between the Bororo and the community and the natives, and that there is no need to be afraid of when you see a Bororo, or no need to suspect a native when a Bororo sees a native. So we have tried to restore confidence, trust and confidence between the two communities and others. We advise all the funds and adults to continue with this sensitization, to continue with the message of the peace and reconciliation caravan in their premises. And that is what some have done. Others are still doing it, and others have not yet started. But we have to emphasize, you know, a social process is not very easy. Peace has no price. Peace has no price. And that the Bororo community are our brothers. Even though our source, or let's say our origin is not the same. Some came from Futa Jalon, others from Sudan, others from, you see. But for having stayed in the same place for many centuries, we are brothers. We are brothers. So that false interpretation, that manipulation of information should stop. and let's embrace ourselves and continue together as brothers and sisters. We also took into consideration that 2025 is an election year in Cameroon, so we could not also be indifferent. Fonds and Hurdles of Donga Division urge the population to get registered massively on the voters list before a closure. You know, it our people that the voters list is open, they should go and register. We support the candidacy of His Excellency President Paul Biya, even though he has not pronounced yet that he is a candidate, but we, in line with the National Council for Traditional Rulers, we are saying that if at all he accepts to be the candidate of his party, we will support him. And our reasons being that given the imperative of peace and development, we don't want to restart. A man by nature is a political animal. And a traditional ruler is a man. So he is also a political animal. Meaning that whether you like it or no, whether directly or indirectly, you do politics. What we refuse is party politics. Understand? Party politics, when you belong to a particular party with your head and your soul joined together, and you don't want to see people from the other side, that is what one should not do. But as a political animal, you have a choice. We should remain within you. Or we are inviting the head of state to come to Nkambe and inaugurate the ring road, which is near finishing. It will be our pleasure, with Fonds and Hurdles of Donga Division, to receive the head of state in Nkambe, or anywhere in Donga Maton, for the inauguration of the ring road. Babila, if you go to Nkambe today, you will be happy when you look at the nature of the road, what they have bulldozed. In fact, you will pray that it should even be faster than that, so that we enjoy that road, because we suffered a lot from dust to mud. If you can have that type of road of more than 12 meters, then we should be happy.
And that's it for today's edition of The Insight. Thank you so much for staying with us. You can follow us on our social media handles on Facebook and on YouTube. You can also follow the rebroadcast of the program on Friday at 5 p.m. Thank you so much for your kind attention. God bless Cameroon. Goodbye.